I did my best to make the holidays fun, especially Halloween. As a single mother, it wasn't easy, especially at the ripe old age of 25, but Angela deserved it. She deserved the perfect childhood I always wanted. Now 7, Angela was at the perfect age for Halloween. Mature enough to enjoy the scares, but young enough to still trick or treat. We spent the past few weeks binge-watching horror movies and visiting fall festivals. I worked my ass off at Forsyth Insurance to support our Halloween addiction, but the work was well worth it, especially to see Angela and I create these amazing memories. Behind the glasses and leftover mama belly, I was still a pretty black woman. Maybe the stress showed. Maybe my hollow cheekbones gave me constant RBF, but none of my flaws could hide my attractive face or smile when I decided to show it. I was glad Angela took after me, both in her geekdom and horrible eyesight. We got along perfect. The scary stories helped us bond. These past few years, Barbara Vynorski hadn't had time for a serious boyfriend. Not when I had Angela to share the holidays with. 2018 was no different. This Halloween was our best yet. Stanwyck, Georgia was great this time of year, especially with its haunted houses and ghost tours. I got Wednesday the 31st off, got Angela to stay home with me, just like we both would the next day. Like a scary shelter, we stayed inside with the decorations. Horror movies stayed on in the background, Halloween music in the air. Our house of horrors on Loblolly Lane right where we wanted to be. And of course, the blood-red wine only further heightened my Halloween spirit. In Angela's upstairs bedroom, I helped her put on the Chucky costume. Sitting at the blue wooden dresser, I put in her red hair dye, helped her into the blood-stained overalls. The costume creepy but cute. All while Bela Lugosi's piercing eyes watched us from the flat screen. I was all set with my own costume, a voodoo zombie from 1974's Sugar Hill. Maybe it was too hipster, but Angela liked me in the big eye contacts and cobweb-covered afro. My fake broken shackles had us both cracking up. Around 5 o'clock, we made our way downstairs. Past the motion sensor cackling mummy. Past the plastic black cats. On the way out, I left a black and orange poster on the front door. An apology for not being able to hand out candy. And one decorated by Angela's crude ghost drawings. We left the jack-o'-lanterns glowing. Our tall scarecrow fluttered by the door. Angela and I walked beneath the fake cobwebs dangling from the trees. Hopped into my SUV. Behind us, the sun faded away, and our Halloween night had begun. Downtown was lit. So were the restaurants on Shotwell Street. The strip mall. Lake Douglas. Angela had a blast. Like a stuffed suitcase, Angela's bag was filled to the brim with candy. Even her emergency pumpkin basket had been conquered by an army of snacks. Around 10, we made it back. We were gonna party late. After all, Angela and I still had a Michael Myers marathon to catch. Inside, we stayed in our costumes as we put away the candy. Windows showed nothing but darkness. The suburbs more quiet than a neglected cemetery. For most of Stanwyck, Halloween was over. Just not for us. Eager, Angela rushed upstairs. "I'm putting on AMC," she shouted. In the living room, I leaned against a sofa. Ran my hand along one of the plastic shackles. My eyes drifted over to the kitchen doorway. The red wine tempted me. "Mom, come on!" Angela's yell rang out. Smirking, I looked at the staircase. Even from here, I could hear Monster Mash blaring off her flat screen. "Just 1 second, Angela," my deep voice hollered back. I turned my attention over toward the TV. Rather than a Bonnie Blue Bones horror special, the local news was on. "Mama," Angela shouted. I faced the stairway once more. "Just 1 second." A harsh knock interrupted me. I could even hear it over Bobby Pickett. Startled, I looked at the front door. And then another roar of a knock erupted through the night. My unease lingered. I knew no trick-or-treaters would be out this late. At least, none that were age-appropriate. The third knock rattled the door. I figured it was probably a prank, or maybe a kid starved for candy. Then I realized maybe it was just a couple of Halloween fanatics, just like Angela and I. Finally, I forced myself to the door and flicked on a porch light. Peered through a window. A young boy stood right there. No taller than 5 feet and no older than Angela. The wind ruffled his scruffy brown hair. and blew against the pumpkin basket he held. I got no read on him. No emotions were on display. No excitement. Instead, he just stood there, slightly hunched over. A cheap plastic mask further hid his face, further disguising his feelings. But hey, he must have wanted candy. Sympathy washed over me. After all, the boy was alone on a cold October night. Not even his basket looked half full. And I liked his costume, the immortalized blank stare and checkered red pajamas of Insidious as Dalton Lambert. Okay, maybe I was giving the kid too much street cred, but I could talk myself into the resemblance. At least, enough to give him some damn candy. Hold on, I yelled. Reaching out, I grabbed a few Reese's off a counter. Opened the front door. Dalton didn't flinch. Instead, he just stood there and didn't even raise his pumpkin. Cold wind hurled against me. Shivering, I folded my arms. My fingers brushed up against the shackles, a futile attempt to stay warm. "Woo, it's cold," I said. The boy didn't say a word. He didn't move. Apparently, those pajamas were warm. Forcing a smile, I held the candy out toward him. "Well, do you know the words?" Uncomfortable silence dominated the scene. I now had a closer view of Dalton's mask. Bright paint encircled its plastic smile and huge eyes. I couldn't see nothing beyond the cheap shield. No sign of emotion in the boy's real eyes. "That's okay," I told him, struggling to keep my voice calm. "Here, happy Halloween." I leaned in closer, then froze midair. There was crushed candy in his bucket. Smeared chocolate, scattered Skittles, but all of it was coated in a thick liquid. A fresh red pool. Scared, I dropped the candy. "There you go," my voice stammered. The Reese's hit the crimson slush pile in a sickening plop. Red syrup now decorated every last wrapper. All I could do was pray someone gave him melted chocolate-covered cherries. Keeping my fake smile, I stood back in the doorway. Felt the boy's unwavering gaze stay on me. I closed the door and staggered inside. Into the arms of Werewolves of London. I ran a trembling hand through my afro. In one quick look out the window, I saw Dalton was gone. What the hell? Trying to recover from the scare, I made my way to the living room. Then the kitchen grabbed my attention. "The wine! Mama!" a young voice shouted. Startled, I jumped back. I saw Chucky at the top of the stairs. "Angela." She laughed at me. "I scared you." "Yeah, you did," I said with a chuckle. "Come on, let's watch the movie." "We will." I stepped toward the kitchen. "Just give me a few minutes." "Okay," I heard Angela reply. 2 minutes later, I finished pouring a glass of wine. Upstairs, I could still hear the Halloween playlist going strong. "Don't fear, the Reaper, our current champ." Like a vampire, I consumed the red wine. Blood for my strength. I knew I needed it if Angela and I were gonna pull another all-nighter. I walked into the living room, and fear immediately hit me. Not the fun kind of fear either, but the kind of gut-wrenching terror no one chases. Rather than Jason on a killing rampage, or Larry Talbot transforming into a werewolf, I was greeted by a real-life horror movie. An emergency on the local news. Insidious killer murders 5, according to the reporters. Stanwyck, Georgia had been harassed by more than obnoxious children and their obnoxious parents tonight. Instead, a woman dressed as the old psychic Elise Rainier from the Insidious movies had killed an entire family. A systematic slaughter, both by axe and hatchet. The murders happened only 30 minutes ago, on Forest Lane, just a few blocks away from Loblolly. A few blocks away from Angela and I. Reports said the family was found in pieces, all 5 of them now nothing more than gory candy. I stood there in horror, terrified by my TV. All the Halloween fun gone in an instant. The newscast went on to play the family's security footage. And there was the old woman. The Elise costume, a tall, scrawny woman in a blue sweater and dark pants. Long blonde hair, long nose. Her excessive makeup was obvious but potent. And the bloody axe she held was all too real. The surreal scene scared me, because I knew this wasn't a prank. Not when I saw Dalton Lambert walking right beside Elise. The same little boy with the plastic mask I saw earlier. Holding the same pumpkin basket. Believed to have brought her son. Read a morbid headline. 5 confirmed dead. A Halloween massacre in Stanwyck. Be alert. Suspect still on the loose with her son. Grisly headlines and updates poured in, both on screen and through my worried mind. I turned toward the staircase, searching for Angela. Like a howl in the distance, a knock further fueled my fear. One steady, single knock. Alarmed, I faced the front door, looked back toward the stairs where I last saw my daughter. The next knock was louder, more demanding. Tapping into my protective mommy instincts, I grabbed a heavy remote control, the closest weapon I could find. The third knock was louder than Blue Oyster Cult's guitars, a hollow scream. Gripping the remote, I approached the front door. Spooky Halloween music followed me all the way there, my steps so long and agonizing, my heart pumping at a rapid rate. Finally, I stopped and looked out the window. There was nothing, just the pumpkins and scarecrow. An abandoned Halloween village void of trick-or-treaters and little Dalton. I swung open the door and stepped out. "Hello," I shouted. No reply. My next few steps took me past the jack-o'-lanterns and closer to the trees. To the complete darkness. I was all alone. Even as, "Don't fear," the Reaper followed me into the night, I came to a nervous stop. Felt a cobweb stick to my fro. "Hello," my voice trembled. Suddenly, everything went out. The lights, the music. Now I really stood in total darkness. In total silence. Terrified, I whirled around. The lights were off inside. Angela and I's Halloween playlist gone with the jack-o'-lantern's flames. And through the dark night, I could barely make out the scarecrow or my open front door. "Angela," I screamed. Fueled by panic, I rushed up the porch. My feet crushed our fallen poster. Wielding the remote like a knife, I stopped in the doorway. "Angela." Only the eerie decorations greeted me. The motion sensor mummy mocked my fear. Battling the breeze, I turned toward the scarecrow, toward who I thought was my only company. With stilted movement, a skinny figure morphed from it. The doll woman, Elise Rainier in the flesh. Her wicked smile marked me. The woman's aged features even more artificial up close. The flesh too grotesque and wrinkly to ever be real. This Elise nowhere near as pretty as the real Line Shay. Cutting through the silence were several quick splashes. The red drops fell at my feet, and then Elise's scrawny hands raised that heavy axe, its blade scarred with a visceral red. "Happy Halloween!" Elise's deep voice teased me. Before she could swing, my mommy instincts took over. My inner Pam Grier. Crying out, I slammed the remote into the side of the woman's head. She staggered back into the scarecrow. I hauled ass inside, running from the cold night to an even colder house. "Angela," I screamed. Behind me, Elise's footsteps got closer, as did her angry yells. The mummy cackled once more. The other decorations formed a creepy chorus. I finally reached the stairs. "Angela," I screamed again. A quick push sent me sprawling onto the first few steps. F***CK, I cried. I turned just in time to see Elise lean in toward me. Her smile so ugly, her eyes fierce. Blood kept falling off the blade. Crimson raindrops for the floor. Elise drew the axe back, her mouth open to laugh, ready to celebrate the kill, but I wouldn't let her. In one wild motion, I shoved the remote control straight down her throat. Elise gagged, choked. She dropped the axe and stumbled back against the railing. Like a dying sword swallower, she grasped at the lodged remote, too weak to pull it out. For good measure, I drew my leg back and kicked. I was always a pretty good soccer player. The remote went in deeper, drowning out Elise's cries. I imagine if we had electricity, the volume would have skyrocketed. Blood flew out the woman's mouth. Gallons of it gave my afro fresh red streaks. Elise fell on the first step, seated there in her final resting place. Her eyes glazed, red saliva now streaming all around the iceberg with AA batteries. Breathing heavy, I grabbed the axe and leaned in closer, cautious but no longer scared. Then an uneasy confusion sunk in. I saw the tall lady had nothing beneath that sweater. No boobs at all. I now saw through the artificiality of her age. Through the amazing Elise Rainier costume. There was the theatrical makeup, the peeled latex nose. Elise's long blonde hair dangled to one side. Reaching out, I brushed the wig off, revealing buzzed black hair beneath it. The moist blood ran down to ruin the makeup. I now saw scattered acne on a young, gawky face. This was a father rather than a crazed mama. And a man young enough to probably be the boy's brother. Shocked, I stumbled back. Felt the axe handle tremble in my grasp. The news report of a crazy mother and son replaying in my mind. "What the hell?" I muttered. "Mama!" Angela's excited voice blared down from the staircase. Back in panic mode, I jogged up the stairs. "No, baby!" Like Foxy Brown, I ambushed Angela's bedroom. "Baby!" I shouted. On the bed sat her and her new friend, little Dalton. Together, they smiled in the darkness, each of them with a pumpkin basket right by their side. "Hey, Mommy," Angela said. She motioned toward the little boy. "This is my new friend. He's dressed like Dalton." Still holding the axe, I approached them. With worried, slow steps. "I see," I said. I stopped right in front of them. Dalton's smile of crooked teeth never left, his big eyes forever focused on me. "Proud," Angela pointed at her overalls. "He said he liked my costume." "That's good, sweetie." I stood up over them. Sweat drenched through my afro, making the blood even stickier. Dalton sat still, the plastic mask too impenetrable to see his motivations. This up close, Dalton's arms looked so much scrawnier. His belly pagier. The clothes didn't fit right. They were loose everywhere except his chest. Splotches of hair were even missing on his head. Several rings crammed on his wrinkled fingers. "Hey," I said to him in a calm tone. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, he said he's gonna protect me," Angela commented. My eyes shifted toward Dalton Lambert's basket. The candy was still there. Even the candy I gave him earlier. Only now that blood looked realistic rather than cool. And there was so much of it. "He wants to celebrate Halloween with us," Angela went on. I felt Dalton's smile sink deeper into my flesh. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw his craggy hand reach for the basket. And then in the pumpkin head, something sharp caught my attention. A small hatchet buried within Dalton's candy. Its wooden handle ancient, the blade worn with redness. Smirking, Angela leaned in closer. "Where'd you get that axe, Mama?" Dalton grabbed the hatchet. Then with a shrill scream, he wrapped an arm around Angela. A grip more brutal than his harsh glare. "Mama!" Angela cried. "Get out of the way!" I yelled. Playing psycho mom, I lunged forward. My loose shackle knocked the boy away from Angela. But the axe was more unforgiving. In one frenetic plunge, I sunk the blade straight into Dalton's chubby chest. An eruption of gore exploded everywhere. Dalton's screams shifted into a high-pitched, agonizing siren. His body squirmed. His small hand dropped the hatchet. Terrified, Angela scampered toward the edge of the mattress. Far from the bed bloodbath, I stared on, unable to look away from the grotesque sight. From the dying little boy, like a wounded wild animal. Dalton stumbled off the bed, his movements clumsy in a daze of death. He fell hard, his head slamming straight into the blue dresser. Rather than crushed flesh, I heard the mask's plastic crunch. The boy landed on the floor, the sharp axe still part of him well after death. Blood flowed all around Dalton, soaking all the way through his red pajamas. His dropped mask nothing more than a tombstone. Victorious, I ripped off the shackles and threw them into the crimson puddles. "Mummy, I'm scared," I heard my child say. I looked over at Angela, her eyes so big and wide. My daughter, the most timid Chucky in Halloween history. Leaning in, I gave her a gentle kiss on the forehead. "Don't be, sweetie," I reassured. Freed from the chains, my hand reached out and caressed her face. Running across the little boy's blood smeared across her cheeks. The blood splattered across both our faces. "I love you, Angela," I told her. Then I turned my gaze back toward the little boy. My daughter and I had seen one too many scary movies. I knew I had to be sure the kid was dead. And judging by Angela's silence, she knew too. Fighting back tears, Angela watched me walk up to Dalton. My steps splashing through the rising red puddles. I came to a scared stop. My breathing got heavier. And so did the anxiety. "What's wrong, Mummy?" Angela's worried voice hit me. Like a malicious montage, the headlines played through my mind. A rerun of the horror. Insidious killer murders. 5 believed to have brought her son. 5 confirmed dead. Be alert. Suspect still on the loose with her son. I guess the news wasn't completely misleading. Behind the mask wasn't an innocent little boy, but a mom. A short, stubby mom. One in her 40s. One with scruffy brown hair. One whose skin was wrinkled with age, stress, and 1,000 cigarettes. And one who brought her son to join her on a Halloween killing spree.